Good evening, guys. It is Saturday night, pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the show. It's going to be a good one. I know I say that every time, but tonight in particular, it's going to be special because we are going to have some great guests, and we're also going to cover a lot of very important topics that I've been doing a considerable amount of research on in terms of going into sort of a deep dive, if you will. We are going to have U.S. Army Reservist Chris Busby on first at the top of the hour. He is going to be coming on to discuss what he's been dealing with regarding his wife, who's from Venezuela, was captured by ICE. What's the point of serving your country? And then, of course, we are going to have friend of the show, Anthony Aguilar, on to discuss exactly what went down or what has been going down over the past 24 hours since he was publicly called out on a global scale by they call them the U.S. ambassador, more like the Israeli ambassador to Israel, Mike I Heart Israel Huckabee. But first, I want to start with a story that I think is something that for anybody who's a sports fan, and I know that there's a reason why I do this on a Saturday night and not on a Monday or a Thursday. Basketball is the sport that I played. It's the sport that I love. It's what I grew up enjoying, not just to play, but to watch. Would go to games, and obviously over the past, couple of decades, the game has changed substantially, and not for the better, in fact, for the very worst. And as the NBA in particular keeps sliding down the mountain, and you would think that the All-Star game was enough to kind of give people an idea of what direction the NBA was going in, particularly how they lauded this, who I will not even name, All-Star from the Portland Trailblazers, who happens to be Israeli. That was only part of the story. The additional layers include the responses from LeBron James regarding the state of Israel, as well as the reaction from the public at large, particularly in the Zionist community, to Spike Lee and Kyrie Irving for daring to shine a positive light on Palestine. But if you think that's bad, this is where you know that tone deafness has met a place that the elites and everyone else have completely disconnected. The Los Angeles Lakers will play the New York Knicks in Tel Aviv next season. This marks the first time the NBA is playing a game in Israel, with more expected. So this isn't just one, it's one of many. When I think about tone deafness, when I think about a disconnect from what's going on, and perhaps maybe it's just a reflection of the Zionist culture at large, with the propensity to double and triple down on their genocidal ideology. After the backlash, the negative press that the NBA has experienced over the past week, and it's already a league in utter turmoil when you consider how difficult it is for them to continue to attract fans to a game that, I mean, let's be honest, if we're talking about a product on the court, yes, there's a lot of talent, but the complete disregard for defense, for team camaraderie, even team loyalty for that matter, and to hell with the fans. I mean, who the hell are they? Other than people that are foolish enough to spend the thousands of dollars that is now required in order to take a family to the game and enjoy it. Those days of being able to afford to go to an NBA game, long gone, over, done with. But it should come as no surprise that the two primary cities, I guess you could say Miami would have been the third one, in terms of who would have any interest in seeing a team go over to Tel Aviv. New York and Los Angeles? Of course, that makes the most sense. But this, in so many respects, is just another example of how the league is completely disconnected from not only where the average fan is, but where the United States as a whole is at large regarding the state of Israel. So the defiance from the NBA should come as no surprise. This has been an act of defiance on their part regarding how they've conducted business for the past several decades. I remember the night that LeBron announced his decision, July 1st, 2010, I think was the date, somewhere around there. And I remember saying, yep, this is going to reverberate and it's going to have an incredibly negative impact on the league. And it did. Now, was the NBA finished when LeBron announced his decision? No, but as you can see over time, the game has slowly but surely deteriorated to a point in which as I was alluding to, their level of disconnect from the average person is substantially large, to the point in which the league is probably ruining itself. And this, again, should come as no surprise. This is what we expect from the NBA. Whether it's from the revelations in the Epstein files regarding the former late commissioner of the NBA, David Stern, whether it is the current commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, whether it's, I believe, 60%, possibly higher, might be as high as 70%, of the current NBA team owners, all fall under the Zionist Jewish contingent. So again, this level of defiance, no surprise. And this is exactly why, when we talk about why is the NBA dying, why is the product dying, why is the brand dying, this is yet another feather in the cap for when the obituary is finally written for a league that is barely holding its head above water. On the international level, yeah, perhaps it's definitely still got some pull. When you think about the biggest stars in the league today, particularly Wemby and Joker, you're talking about two international superstars. But when it comes to the league in general on the domestic side, it really goes to show you that of all the things that they wanted to focus on during All-Star Weekend, became the primary driving talking point regarding an Israeli All-Star. There's probably a lot of other things that they could have been drawing their attention to, but they decided to go with this. And so I bring this up because this is just one of a multi-layered story that I think gets more and more interesting. Now, Colin, if you have that tweet that I also sent you regarding Kevin Durant, and I don't know this person that he was communicating with on social media. Perhaps he's somebody of note. But there was a debate regarding, on one hand, the new designs of the championship trophies. Now, if you ask me, there's really not much to that. But on the other hand, there was a little interesting message that was thrown in there. So, Colin, if you could pull that up, please. Y'all remember he changed the design. So this is Pranav Siriman. Y'all remember that he changed the design of every major trophy there was for zero reason at all? Yeah, kind of like the time I remember when the NBA decided to change their basketball, the actual ball, and it drove the players nuts, and eventually they had to switch it back. Why did they change it? Because it was a cost saver. Something as stupid as that. But of course, it didn't last. That was back in like the 06-07 season, if I remember correctly. And so if you could bring up the chat commentary. No, we don't have to look at this, Colin. Don't worry about these. I want to go directly, if you scroll down. No, scroll down. You'll see right here. Kevin Durant, who apparently has a number of burner accounts on social media, so he makes a habit out of this. We're talking about one of the three biggest superstars in the league over the past decade plus. This is what he does for shits and giggles, because he clearly has nothing better to do. And when you give people way too much money and way too much fame, they end up doing things like this. Damn, y'all even hate the trophies? So Pranav responds with, not as much as I hate your drone investments. Now, if you click on that, show the replies. So Durant clearly decides to sidestep this response and says, so you hate the trophies. My God, you guys are just miserable. Why? Because not everybody's rich and famous like you are, Kevin. You in the very top echelon to society, probably worth a couple $100 million. A lot more than that, excuse me, because he's a entrepreneur. Not the only thing I mentioned I hate. Address me. So scroll down a little bit more and you'll see. I hate the drone investments too, but damn, you deleted a normal reply to a banger hunt. Well, Durant decided not to respond. He decided that he was going to sidestep a question about whether or not he is invested in a drone company. Now, would you care to guess which country the drone company is that he's invested in? You already know the answer. Colin, please pull up the article. Kevin Durant's investment portfolio, 5 biggest companies. Skydio, total amount raised, $562 million. Now, keep in mind, this investment goes back to prior to October 7th, 2023. So he's been invested in Israel for a while. Drone manufacturer Skydio raised another $230 million in Series E funding earlier this year, with the latest round lifting its valuation to $2.2 billion. Skydio, which has grown at a 30x rate over the past 3 years, plans to use the money to raise this year to build a new manufacturing plant in Hayward, California, which will boost its capacity tenfold. Skydio has experienced massive demand for its autonomous drones from government agencies, with its drones being used by over 200 safety agencies in the U.S. Here's the little kicker. Now, we don't need to worry about the other investments. This is the one that obviously was the primary driver here. Skydio is an Israeli-based company. And Durant has invested millions upon millions of dollars in this organization. Do you think he stopped investing in them after October 7th, 2023? Or did he stick around for the massive upswing in valuation by the organization? Yes, he did. And yes, he is still invested in them. So this brings me, he not only doubled down, but I'm going to show you guys exactly what the NBA has come to today. Colin, if you will, with that image. Now, what you have here, as I've mentioned before, are probably the 3 biggest NBA superstars over the past, we'll say, decade to a decade and a half. I would still say that over the course of the initial years of LeBron's decision, you still had a plethora of superstars that were not part of this insane transition that the league ultimately went under. You still had Dirk Nowitzki, you still had Tim Duncan, you still had Kevin Garnett, and yes, you had the late Kobe Bryant. But ultimately, the league got taken over by the likes of LeBron, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant. I might not be able to jump very high, but I could lock you down defensively. That I can do. This is what the NBA has become. The NBA and its partnership with the Zio state is now completely undeniable. What they have effectively become, and without question, there is no gray area here. Yes, this is an AI photo. They didn't actually take a picture in the IDF uniforms. But is there really a difference, though, when you consider the expose we did on Steph Curry and his investment in Israeli tech companies, when you figure out that Kevin Durant has done the same? And of course, LeBron saying, I've only heard great things about Israel, and I can't wait to get there. I hate the fact that I can't watch basketball anymore. I hate the fact that the sport that I loved, that I grew up playing, that I really enjoyed, has turned into this. But you know what? The more I mature, the more I live, the more I realize that sports is fun, but that's part of why football is the most enjoyed sport. It's usually 1 day a week, although they've changed that dramatically. Mondays and Thursdays as well. Point is, you have your team, you have 1 game a week, and you have it for 4 months. And that's it. Now, of course, the NFL is not much better than the NBA. They don't blatantly show their support for Israel the way the NBA does. Neither does hockey or baseball. But that doesn't mean that there aren't owners and shareholders, if you will, that take a significant level of economic, political, social interest in the Israel cause. What we know for absolute certainty, which has been the hallmark of the NBA since the days of Magic, Bird, and Michael, what was a saving grace period during the 80s and 90s, and in my opinion, the best run in the history of the league, those days are long gone. They're decades long gone. And while there are still great players playing in the league today, the league is nothing like it once was. And it's dying a slow death because the people at the very top who control the outfit, if you will, they don't care. Anyone who thinks it was reasonable to have a basketball game played in Tel Aviv, scheduling it at this point, right now, a year from now, as I said, that's a level of tone deafness and disconnect from reality that only a rich, entitled, Zionist Jewish contingent of people could possibly think was a reasonable form of discourse. Yes, I will be joining Keaton. I don't know if Russell will be there, but I will be joining Keaton Weiss on Due Dissonance tomorrow night. So we hope you guys will tune in for that. But in conclusion, we are all better off without the NBA. That much I can say with absolute confidence. It is what it is. And so now we ask ourselves, yes, Brian Mast, of course, many people have been very brazen in their, we'll just say, devotion to the Zio state. But remember, so much of what we see is kind of like the devotion to the Democratic establishment, the devotion to Trump. What are the universal themes that tie them all together? There is a lot of money to go around, just as there is the 7,000 a post on behalf of Israel that we see from a lot of different scummy people, like the Lizzie Savetsky's, like the Michael Rappaports of the world. Again, people want to get paid, and it isn't necessarily what their ideology is, but then it's doubly worse if it is, and then they're just swimming in the blood money as well. And so this brings me to what I think is a very important story, especially since it's still a little, not too late for our UK friends. I do want to address Tony Blair, the butcher of Britain, alongside his war on terror days with W. And of course, he's now a part of the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace. This is what Tony Blair decided to stick his head up for. This is how he's decided to get involved in politics again. And here's what he had to say at that big scam of a meeting regarding the new Board of Peace.
Decades, Gaza's governance has been characterized by extremism, corruption, ineffective institutions, and the complete absence of a route to prosperity for the Gazan people. Yet, as President Trump recognized, its potential has always been vast. 25 miles of Mediterranean coastline, proximity to great regional and global markets, and a young, dynamic population with a median age of 19. So today we set out profound changes necessary to rebuild Gaza for Gazans.
Okay. If there's one thing we know, they are not rebuilding Gaza for Gazans. They are rebuilding Gaza for rich Zionist Jewish aristocrats. And Tony Blair can only so happily go along with it, just as he went along from day one with the so-called war on terror and the invasion of Iraq and many other for-profit wars that came as a result. And remember, Tony Blair is a liberal. So make no mistake, this guy is not even a Tory. When it comes to war and peace, especially when it's on behalf of Israel, there is no political ideology. It's all one universal ideology, and they all speak the same language. And Mr. Blair, just because he's a Brit and thinks he's sophisticated to talk about genocide in such a calm, eloquent, and desirable way that wouldn't dare offend the average person, well, just because you're a Brit doesn't make you smart. And just because you're from the South, don't make you dumb. Unless you're George W. Bush. Talk about an interesting odd couple that found common ground on behalf of the war machine. But in reality, they found common ground on behalf of Israel. And that's what this is all about.
Gaza not as it was, but as it should be, including its governance. Effective public institutions serving the people, a business environment where enterprise flourishes, an education system educating the young for tolerance and achievement, and a tech-enabled society making the most of the digital revolution. This is a vision of Gaza as part of a Middle East at peace. Not a phony piece of declarations no one means and agreements no one intends to keep, but a genuine commitment to a region where whether you're a Muslim, Jew, Christian, of any faith or none, you can rise by your own efforts and feel your government by your side, not on your back.
Okay. The energy that is coming from Mr. Blair is definitely one of bourgeoisie talking to the proletariat. Just give us all you've got, and daddy government will take really good care of you. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what exactly has happened over the past 2+ years? And again, I shouldn't even phrase it that way, because the genocide, the true genocide of the Palestinian people has been going on since 1948. You could even go a step further and simply say 1967 if you want to be completely technical about it. That being said, why would you even consider the prospect of believing what he's saying? And this again gets back to the brazen nature within which the aristocratic globalist class operates on. It's one thing if you want to have a Brit convey a message of prosperity. You pick Tony Blair? I mean, as I've said, and this is going to be the universal theme of the evening over the next few hours. The complete lack, I would say, of awareness, the complete lack of awareness on the part of the aristocratic globalist ruling class. They truly believe that we are simply to take our medicine and accept it. And Tony Blair is already willing and able to do so, no matter how much blood he has on his hands. That's for the pores. That's in the past. It's over with now. And as has been pointed out by Zizou, they don't want to call it Palestine, but it is Britain-mandated Palestine. So they know all too well. We'll finish it up.
That is the vision behind President Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza, and it remains the best, indeed the only hope for Gaza, the region, and the wider world.
Remember, the only people who are allowed into rooms like this are ones that agree with the globalist project, that they believe that this is the way that it has to be. We are bringing peace, prosperity, and freedom to the world. But just as Klaus Schwab says of the WEF, you will own nothing and you will enjoy it. Just as you will accept your genocide as we mow the lawn to its totality. And of course, later on this evening, we'll be speaking with Anthony Aguilar regarding Mike Huckabee and how they truly let the cat out of the bag about what the intentions of the actual project, the Greater Israel Project, which it has always been. There is no gray area here. Now, while Mr. Blair is definitely somebody that, as I've said, would probably be inclined to sell this idea to people, you have another person who was at this event that decided he was going to make his voice heard. You all know who Marc Rowan is, former business associate of Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, that's right. Marc Rowan is a part of the board of peace. B-O-R-E-D, mind you. is how we should spell it. Here's what Mr. Rowan had to say.
Plan to do this by gathering Gaza's productive assets in one unified structure. This will allow independent, professional, conflict-free management of the resources to benefit the Gazans.
Could we just take a moment to acknowledge just how crass and ostentatious the President of the United States truly is? Did they put a Make America Great Again hat on every single delegate's chair or right in front of where they sit? It sure looks like it. Welcome to 1984, baby.
This will also enable expeditious planning and zoning and not fragmented projects that do not contribute to an economic whole. The potential here is tremendous, but it has to start somewhere. The start is in Rafah, where, as you heard, that will be the first place security is deployed. The plan is 100,000 homes for 500,000 residents plus $5 billion of infrastructure. Over time, 400,000 homes for the entirety of the population with more than $30 billion of infrastructure. Let me put it in financial terms. This is not a problem of money or collateral.
How could it be when you control the banking system and you control the money supply? Of course, it's not a problem. Remember, money is an illusion. I want everybody to understand this. And I want everybody to understand that while I am not a financial advisor, I know a thing or two about investing. And what I can assure you is that projects like this will continue to devalue the US dollar. There's a reason why BRICS is the answer to US hegemony worldwide. Projects like this accelerate the inevitable demise of American empire that much faster. Because the thing you have to remember about these globalists, ladies and gentlemen, is that while they may be Jewish Zionists living in the United States, they don't give a damn about what happens to our country. That's why they live off the grid. That's why they live in other parts of the world. And if things get bad here, they'll just go somewhere else. They can hoard different forms of currency, different forms of wealth that the average person can't get their hands on. We are at the mercy of what these animals are doing to our country and to the world. So when we say that we need revolutionary change, we mean exactly what our show's title is. Now, does this get us in trouble with the powers that be over at Google? Oh, absolutely it does. Have you noticed how suppressed our channel has been for the past few days since we dropped that banger of a clip with Marc or Kimberly about LeBron James? Remember, this is kind of like why they don't actually ban channels outright like they temporarily did with a friend of the show, Guy Christensen. You see, a ban draws way too much attention to the problem. But if you suppress and shadow ban, then all you could do is complain. But in reality, that's the best medicine, because they can say, well, we never actually banned you. We made sure nobody could see you, but it's ostensibly the same thing. We're not going to quit, and we're going to keep talking about this. Just as Mr. Rowan is going to keep talking about his wonderful plans for the genocided Palestinians.
This is a problem of peace. The coastline alone, $50 billion of value on a conservative basis. The housing stock, more than $30 billion as rebuilt. The infrastructure, more than $30 billion. $115 billion of value. It just needs to be unlocked and financed.
Great.
Keep in mind, this is a financial associate of Jeffrey Epstein that's talking at this event, that is making this pledge about what they're going to be doing in Gaza. Like I said, the thing about the aristocratic Zionist ruling class is that they will always double, triple, and quadruple down on their ideology and on their financial, economic, social, political goals. This doesn't change anything. They want you to pretend like this isn't going on. Somebody even mentioned the other day the fact that Trump is making his formal announcement that we're totally going to release all the information about aliens. Yeah, everybody had a good laugh at that for about 5 minutes. But no, we're going to get back to what's really important here. What's important here is exactly what's going down. What's going down is the dismantlement of the Palestinian people and all that they've held dear for thousands of years. And as Jen has pointed out, the odds that there's going to be 2 million dead in the desert just grows exponentially by the day. And the drastic undercount of how many have been killed, starved, maimed, etc. It's got to be at least 750,000 people. And this was a number that we were discussing several months ago. So Lord knows where they are now. And we know that they're still bombing the hell out of them. And we know that they're preventing aid from getting where it needs to go. Now, they haven't gotten every nook and cranny. But trust me, just as we know Gaza has been completely devastated, decimated, and outright destroyed. Now they're moving on to the West Bank. And now they've annexed the West Bank. And what do you think's coming next? They're probably going to end up doing the same thing. And how are they going to do it? Well, you know, there's these things called false flags. And they tend to happen a lot. So who's to say that that's not coming? We've only got like, half a dozen aircraft carriers in West Asia now. But we know what's coming next. So this is just the beginning. This is just the start. And as history has shown us many a times, we see this happening before it actually does. This is not a new story. This is just history repeating itself. History has repeated itself many times. But when it comes to the Zionist class, there is something to be said for not letting the story die about Howard Lutnick and his involvement at Cantor Fitzgerald on 9/11 and what impact that actually had when it came to the terrorist attacks. How were they involved? Well, I was able to dig up this little interesting nugget. This is a video clip from shortly after 9/11 from Fox News that's been sitting in the archives for over 2 decades. Kudos to whoever was able to drag it out and find it. But boy, is this not telling.
Miller in Lower Manhattan. David, thank you very much. Since Tuesday, we've been mentioning a certain company, the bond trading firm Cantor Fitzgerald. They employed about 1,000 people on several top floors at the World Trade Center. The head of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, just happened to be out of the office that day that the terrorists struck.
Yeah, total coincidence. Just like with lucky Larry Silverstein. The only guys that managed to somehow avoid being there on that given day. And they seem to benefit quite substantially from a financial standpoint as a result of that. Pay attention.
Mr. Lutnick was taking his son to his first day of kindergarten. Now he says he has a very different view of business and life. He spoke to our business correspondent, Terry Keenan, earlier today.
We are really focused on trying to make sure that our 700 families who lost a member of their family are taken care of. And so I spent the day yesterday and part of the day in talking to our insurance company. Our insurance company, CNA, told me that they would, they told our guys, they didn't tell me, and then they told me that, that they were willing to treat this as an accidental death, which means that they would double the policy for all of my my victims upstairs and all.
One more time. Listen closely.
Means that they would double the policy for all of my my victims upstairs. And
victims upstairs, as in the victims above the impact zone at the top of the North Tower. Not a single person survived. I always found it interesting how the first plane struck Cantor Fitzgerald. Right there. I think it was like the 105th floor or something like that. Not a single person from Cantor Fitzgerald that was there that day survived the attack. But somehow, some way, much like Lucky Larry Silverstein, Mr. Lutnick, Nutlick as we like to call him now, he just so happened to be dropping his kid off at school that day. And like Larry Silverstein, he was in the office every day, forever, always at the office. But somehow, some way, on that magical day of 9/11, he just so happened to not be there, claiming that he was taking his kid to the first day of school, but as it also turns out, he probably wasn't there. I also want to point out, guys, since we have over 870 people watching live, make sure you're also subscribed on Rumble. You know, one of the things that also ends up happening as they suppress this channel is to make sure that nobody gets to see it. So hopefully subscribing at Rumble will help as well. We also are streaming live on Instagram as we speak. So make sure you do that. And if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do us a solid and do so, as it is a tremendously appreciated gesture, and it helps get the word out about the live stream. When you have a slip of the tongue like this, well, actually, it's not even a slip of the tongue. It's a Freudian slip. It's a true Freudian slip. My victims? Yes, very much so. And make sure you go over to patreon.com and you can sign up for free. We're starting a community chat over there. So any support there as well helps. But make no mistake, when you say my victims upstairs, you're telling on yourself. This is what they do. There's a reason why these videos have been suppressed for decades. And now they're coming out. Larry Silverstein, I believe, is 94 years old, and I believe Lutnick is 70-something. So it's not surprising. But what these lessons are supposed to teach us. So he pocketed $135 million of that policy and never paid the families of the deceased, as I heard. I'm sure. Oh, that wouldn't surprise me as well. Listen, if you're willing to be on the inside of a grand conspiracy known as Operation Main Event, which is what it was allegedly called, somebody's getting paid. And Lutnick certainly looks like he's doing pretty well. And considering his affiliation with Epstein, this should come as absolutely no surprise to anybody, but he's got more to say.
All of us, and so that added $35 million to that group upstairs. But the sad thing is, so $35 million sounds like so much money, but if you divide it by 700 people, it's only $50,000. It's not enough to. So that's why we need to work on our foundation.
If you've never seen fake crying in your life, that's an example of horrific acting. Not, well, you could do a little bit better. Could you be a little bit more convincing? Anyone who's watching this would know this guy's full of shit. With just an ounce of awareness, they would know, oh, this guy's not really crying. He's not really sad. He's just pretending. Can you believe me now? You think people will believe me? Should have, you'd be like Robert De Niro. You should have dabbed your eyes a little bit before you got in front of the camera. You're not really convincing me. You're not really convincing me. I think you got to do a better job. Better job. Yeah. I heard things like he's full of shit. Big time.
And you've set up that foundation. We'll give the information to our viewers. Explain the needs of these young families. Many of your traders were just in their 30s. We've
got the average employee we have is around 33 years old. So they're just married. We have probably a dozen women who are pregnant with babies who just lost their husbands. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots. We must have more than 1,000 children, 1,500 children who've now lost one of their parents, and they've lost the breadwinner that makes all the money. So we are dedicated to raising money for our foundation, which will go to take care of and try to help the victims of this horrible tragedy and try to make their lives a little easier, whether that pays for, health insurance for a long, long time, or gets them some extra money, or makes their lives even this much easier. I mean, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're driving for, and it's called the Cantor Fitzgerald Foundation. And anyone who can make a donation to it is going to help a lot of people who really, really need it.
And as has been pointed out in the chat, it appears that Mr. Lutnick decided to pocket a considerable amount of those proceeds. A lot of people never got paid. Remember how impactful a true mensch of a Jewish person, Jon Stewart, was when he had to fight on Capitol Hill on behalf of firefighters not getting their benefits. That's what it took. It took that much attention. I remember it well. This was back in, this is like 2013, 2014, something like that. And why would it ever have to come to that? The more we learn about 9/11 today, the more you have to recognize that this was an inside job. And I'm not even talking about Building 7. I'm not even addressing that one. That's a whole story unto itself. You don't even need Building 7 to know that this was an inside job. Building 7 just confirms it. That's all that does. Those layers, it's pretty thick. But this is a guilty man right here.
And just finally, it was just, the accident of timing and luck on your part that you weren't in the building. And I know some of the other survivors here. How do you feel it must, tear you in so many different directions?
I don't know why I'm alive. I not only was I didn't get.
You're alive because you knew the attack was coming and you didn't show up to work for the first time in how many years? That's why you're alive. If there's a hereafter, you're going to get yours. Don't worry.
Get to the building early enough so that I wasn't in it. But then I stood outside at the door helping people out and telling them to come on, get out, and asking what floor they were on, trying to find the higher and higher floors so that I could hopefully find someone coming down from 101, so that meant our guys and our women had survived. But I'm standing under the building when the number 2 collapses, and I'm just lucky to be alive. And I don't know why I am, but you know what? I'm just thankful, and it must be because I've got the responsibility to try to do my best for this group of 700 families, and I'm just one of them. I lost my brother, my sister's here. We're just part of the family, and that's my responsibility, and I'm going to do my best. And my fantastic employees at Cantor and eSpeed and TradeSpark, they're doing their best to support these guys, and that's what's driving them. And I think they're heroes. They're really all heroes.
I don't think you fully understand how psychopaths operate. I think you truly don't understand that even family is expendable. And this is how things are. Now, it's possible he might have suggested maybe he shouldn't go into work today, but he went anyway. Who knows? But he can't go out there and say it outright. This is the reason for that. And when you talk about a criminal family that has a history of doing some really shady shit, then you get things like this. Howard Lutnick's family firm bought up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar after Liberation Day last year. Today, the Supreme Court struck the tariffs down. For every $100 invested, Lutnick's sons just made 3 to 5x on their money. That's criminal behavior. So basically, what was going on for those that understand the finance world and why this is such a big deal? If you remember a year ago, Lutnick was out there touting the tariffs as a great investment. This is what we should be doing. And all the while, behind the scenes, he was betting against them. He was betting that they would fail. And as a result, in lieu of the Supreme Court and the ruling they just handed down, they ended up getting even richer. Do you understand how a criminal mindset works? Do you understand that people kill for a lot less than this? So when somebody says his brother died on 9/11, how could you even suggest that he wouldn't tell him? Are you nuts? You clearly don't understand how these people operate. Do you see how brazenly they kill for money and power, especially the Palestinian people? They don't even hesitate. Oh, means to an end. They got in our way. We have a job to do. To me, this says it all. But that's not where the story ends. I brought this up tonight, not because this proves that Lutnick is a criminal. That much it does prove. Does it prove that he was in on the 9/11 conspiracy? There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests that he was. Now, I can't prove it yet. But do I think he had something to do with it? Yeah, I do. Do I think the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, who just happened to not be at the office the day when more people died on 9/11 than any other office in the World Trade Center, no one had more deaths than Cantor Fitzgerald. Do I think he had something to do with it? Yeah, I do. And at a minimum, he knew about it. So how do we bring this story full circle? The one thing I will never forget when it came to 9/11 when I was young, I learned shortly after 9/11, because there was a time shortly after 9/11, or pretty much right at 9/11, I had initially signed up to join the U.S. Army. Now, eventually I did not go. Long story short, it was not long thereafter. I'm talking within that year, 2002, before we went to Iraq, invaded Iraq, excuse me. One thing I realized that never really got talked about was that there was a massive stock sell-off of United and American stock after 9/11, or before 9/11, I should say. 4 days prior to 9/11, there were short options put on United stock and American stock. After 9/11, the day after, United stock went down 39% and American stock went down 42%. So somebody got really rich. Now, is it possible that it was Mr. Lutnick and Cantor Fitzgerald? I don't know. But I know this much. Colin, if you would, please. "9/11 terrorists made millions on the stock market." Now, this is an article from Truthout from November of 2011. So basically 10 years later. "Terrorism, the ultimate in insider trading." A Charles Sturt University researcher says that what happens to financial markets after a terrorist attack and how terrorists make money from these market movements. He's not specifying what the terrorist is. You would assume that they're talking about Arabs, but no, that's not who the terrorists are. The terrorists are people like Lucky Larry Silverstein and Howard Lutnick. Those are who the real terrorists are. Scroll down, please. So a Charles Sturt University researcher says that what happens to financial markets after a terrorist attack and how terrorists make money from these market movements is illustrated by the suspicious trading that occurred immediately before the successful attacks on New York, Madrid, and London. Dr. Hugh McDermott, senior lecturer in law enforcement at the CSU Australian Graduate School of Policing in Manly, says the terrorists make money by speculating on the markets. When terrorists have inside info on an imminent attack, they purchase financial derivatives before the attack and make millions from the subsequent market movements. Global financial markets react swiftly to the news of the terrorist attacks on New York, Madrid, and London with a general flight to quality. Gold, bonds, and defense stock strengthened, and investors flocked to highly liquid developed markets. In contrast, less mature markets suffer, as do stocks as reassurance in aviation. American Airlines share price dropped 39% after 9/11, and United dropped 42%. Excuse me, I had the two backwards. My apologies. Even a novice trader can see the windfall that could be achieved in shorting these stocks before a terrorist attack. Market movements. Dr. McDermott, a former senior manager of major fraud and international enforcement with the Aussie Securities and Investment Commission, notes that the German Stock Market Commission reported that in the days before 9/11, derivatives traded on underwriter Münchener Ruck were twice normal volumes. Münchener Ruck's share price dropped 22% after the attacks. On September 7th, 2001, the number of put options on British Airways was 4 times normal volumes. British Airways shares dropped 42% over the following week. Between September 6th and 7th, 4,744 put options were bought on United, 6 times the normal volumes, assuming that 4,000 of these options were bought by terrorists. Again, assuming. And if they are terrorists, they're not the terrorists that you're thinking of. Not the people flying in the planes, which supposedly happened. We're talking about the financial terrorists. That's who the real terrorists are. These insiders would have profited almost $5 million. On September 10th, 4,500 put options were bought on American Airlines, 285 times normal volumes. Assuming the 4,000 of these options were purchased by terrorist insiders, they would have netted a gain of about $4 million. The point is, financial stocks also declined after the attacks due to the disruption of trading and the operation of the financial system. World Trade Center was the nerve center of the global financial system, so the attacks were a major disruption to businesses. 74% of the civilian deaths in the attack were people employed in the financial industry, and many investment banks had head offices in or around the World Trade Center. I think we can conclude it here. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that the more we learn and the more we understand about 9/11 and so many other historical inflection points in our nation's history since World War II in particular, is that Israel, more often than not, had a hand in what was going on. And those that stand to benefit the most from it, particularly Silverstein and Lutnick, are fiercely loyal financial supporters of the state of Israel. And we are at their mercy for now. So when you look around at what's happening right now in West Asia, also known as the Middle East, and when you see what's happening with Iran, and knowing full well that Iran is one of a few developed countries in the world that is not a Rothschild, Zionist-controlled bank of a country, you can understand why this is such a devastatingly dangerous moment. Hezbollah pronouncing support for Iran. North Korea, Russia, China. This is World War III, most likely. I hope cooler heads prevail, but when you consider who's controlling the levers of power right now, I'm not going to hold my breath. And if we've learned anything from this segment, is that people will kill for money and power. People will kill a lot for money and power. Just as they're doing in Gaza, just as they've done throughout history. There is nothing unique about this at all. Nothing unique at all. This is human behavior. This is psychopathic human behavior. And it accounts for about 4% of the human population. And when you think about the 8 billion plus people on this planet, well, you do the math. There's at least a couple of 100 million people on this planet that think like Howard Lutnick and Larry Silverstein. They're all amongst us. Now, do I think some of the psychotic behavior can be attributed to the environment that you're brought up in, and it could be exacerbated worse, yes, I think that's reasonable. But if it's inherently buried within you, many times people will just figure out a way to make it so. So it is what it is. We want to thank each and every one of you that is here this evening. If you would be so kind and considerate, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, still growing, despite being suppressed channel. We want to acknowledge our super chatters before we bring in our esteemed guest, Citizen Pendejo with the 50 pesos. As Coldplay used to say, revolutionaries wait for Mike's ad on a silver plate, just a puppet OF to I hate these code words, but I know what you're trying to say. Epstein elites. Oh, who would ever want to be him? Good question. Pirate Justin, Shabbat Shalom, fellow Goyim. How are you doing? And I'm part Jewish too, so I got both going for me. Jim Talip with the super sticker, $5. Always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Bowen and Corey are running or can't count on Dems for shit. No, the Democratic Party is dead. Don't resuscitate. Now, there's some decent people running in the Democratic Party for sure, but make no mistake. Vote blue won't save you. How's that for a line? And I just came up with that on the spot. Voting blue won't save you. Trademark it. I said it. Use it. Ruby K. B. Liar, I think you were trying to donate. It didn't happen. It's all good. A lady, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate it. Substack of Hattie with the €2. Substack of Hattie for the real story of Greater Israel. I appreciate the plug. We should definitely check it out. And finally, also Pirate Justin with the $2. Even the Irish have experienced such luck. Hey, I'm Irish and I know I'm a lucky guy. So here's to you. And finally, TM, where have you been, my love? It's great to see you. Thanks for checking in. With the $10 super sticker, hope all is well in the state of Michigan, assuming you're still there. And as we said, if you are so inclined, any and all support is tremendously appreciated because, as you know, our channel is taking our lumps. And again, make sure that you are subscribed to Revolutionary Change, not just here on YouTube. Click the bell and share the stream, but also make sure that you're subscribed on Rumble. And also, if you are feeling extra special, take out your phone, click the QR code, and check out Revolutionary Change PAC. We are currently supporting, through our super PAC, Shama Sawant for Congress in Washington's 9th District against super-duper Zio scumbag Adam Smith, who's been in Congress almost as long as I've been alive. Isn't that amazing? So consider checking it out. Speaking of spreading the word and helping those who need help. You know, the thing that we always try to do with our channel is try to do something good for humanity. That's our goal. And right now, when we think about what's been going on in terms of the ICE raids, in terms of why are these things happening, I ask myself, why are people so obsessed with law enforcement? And also, why are those that end up serving this country the ones who get shitted on the hardest, denigrated the most? That's a question that U.S. Army Reservist Chris Busby is going to help us understand better. Welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Doing good, my friend. Unfortunately, considering the circumstances, I know you don't want to have to be here, but why don't you take us from the top, your story, how you ended up in the military, how you ultimately ended up in the situation you're in right now, as we bring more attention to what's happening with your wife and how we can help and hopefully make some type of an inroads to getting things where they need to be and have her freed. Yeah,
absolutely. So my name is Chris. I joined the Army back in 2015. I enlisted into the Army Reserves, and then I ended up going, it's active duty on the reserve side. So I went active duty for a few years. Then I became a Black Hawk pilot. So I'm still currently a Black Hawk pilot for the Army Reserves. I met Stephanie last year. As soon as I met her, I knew she was going to be the girl that I married. There was no doubt in my mind, we dated for a while. And like I said, I knew that she was going to be the one that I really wanted to marry. And so in December, we made that happen. We were trying to do a secret marriage. She saw some TikTok. I don't know several girls on TikTok, but she saw some TikTok and there was a couple that did that, and she thought it would be super cute. So we thought it was going to be super cute. So that was the goal. Unfortunately, a couple days after we got married is when she got detained, and she's been in there ever since. So we've done pretty much everything that we can to try to get her out, but now, what we're trying to do is spread this story to share awareness, right? But also give people hope. I think that's a big thing for me personally, because I have a lot of hope that we'll get Steph out of this and, life will be better, and I just want to show people the journey as we go on it.
When you serve your country, you would think that there would be certain advantages, rightfully so, that a citizen should be afforded. What has been the experience with your wife being detained? And it seems that you pretty much are not getting anywhere.
Yeah, it's really disheartening, in all transparency, I don't, expect any privilege from being in the military. I wish there was a better way though. Truly, I wish there was a better way. But it's like everything you do, there's always a roadblock there, which really sucks. And it seems like the rules and regulations get changed on the daily basis. So even if you do go in with a comprehensive plan, it seems like it gets kind of shut down really quickly, So it is really disheartening.
Yeah, I disagree from the standpoint that there should be privileges. Listen, if you put your life on the line for your country, I believe that there are certain things that should be afforded to you. And unfortunately, we're seeing it right now because the complete disregard in so many respects for people that have served this country. I'm not an abolitionist. I do believe that you have to have some form of law enforcement. However, this idea that we need ICE, when you fully understand the economic and political system that is the United States and how it works, and how so many people that go into the military for a variety of different reasons. The most should always be because you love your country and you want to serve it. But we all know that that's not generally how things work out that way. The people that ultimately are willing to put on the uniform are willing to do things that most people are not willing to do. And so when you do that and your country in the same breath basically says, oh, by the way, thanks for nothing, and we're going to take your wife too. I would think that probably is something that has got to eat at you in some respect, where you say, why did I do this in the first place? Why did I join? I mean, obviously, everything, in my opinion, happens for a reason. So ultimately, you join the military, and as a result, you end up meeting your wife. But at the same time, you have to say, well, what was the purpose of me doing this in the first place? Is that something that ever comes to mind? Because I know it's very difficult. I have a good friend who was a lieutenant in the war in Iraq, and we never talk about the things that he did. You have to look back on it now and say, what was it for? Obviously, we know it was clearly not for the reasons we said we were going there. So I ask you, do you ever have those moments where you reflect and think, was it the right decision? Is that something that ever comes to mind?
So I never asked myself if it was the right decision, because when I joined for a good reason, and I know there are many others that are like me that joined for a good reason. And throughout our career, we've done, I personally, have done a lot of like positivity using the military, and the military has taught me a lot. And I've been able to meet, to help a lot of people because of the military. Moving forward though, right, because of how the government is, the direction in which the government is going, I'm not sure if it's something that I would continue doing for the long term anymore. Ever since Steph has been taken away, I have not put on my uniform. And I don't know, honestly, if I ever will again.
I would say that if you are even contemplating that, one has to ask, what have you attempted to do to potentially have the armed forces at least draw attention to this story? And what has been the response? I'm guessing it hasn't been anywhere as fruitful as you would have hoped it would be.
Yeah, so I've reached out to a lot of people that I knew in the military, from all sorts of ranks, people who I thought could help. But unfortunately, sorry, I have to be really careful with the words that come out of my mouth when I'm still in the military. Unfortunately, no one's going to help me. I'll just say it as transparent as that. No one's going to help me. They've openly admitted they will not help me. Right. I think a lot of people in the military, unfortunately, may agree with what ICE is doing, which may be the reason why they don't want to help. Right. I understand a lot of people in the military, the easiest response is always, it's a civil matter.
Guys, stop. Let me run my show, please. Thank you. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But yes, I think it's very important to understand that sort of mindset, because you are in the military and there are certain protocols that you have to follow. Again, it's no different if you were in intelligence. If you have friends that work at any of the alphabet agencies, they're regular people just like you and I. But there are certain oaths that you have to take that you cannot talk about. So I ask you, what is your wife's story and why was she detained?
Yeah, so my wife came from Venezuela back in 2021. She came here requesting asylum, and she's still ongoing her case for asylum. She did have TPS, as a lot of people that came from Venezuela. If no one knows, TPS is temporary protective status, just to say that. She did have TPS, but I guess none of that even matters. So she came here back in 2021. She's applied for asylum. She had her court date back over in January or February of 2027. So we're still waiting for her court date in 2027 to determine whether or not she was going to get asylum or not. Anyways, because she came from Venezuela and because she came the way that she has to check in with ICE once a year. It's a normal thing, right? Freestep.com. Thank you. She has to check in with ICE once a year. She has done this every year since she's been here, no problem. She usually goes, she checks all her information, make sure her address is up to date and all the other stuff, and then she's good to go. For some reason this year, she had 2 appointments. So we had one back in September, and then they had another one scheduled for December 5th. This back in September, it was about 30 minutes, and, in and out, right? This time she was there for about 2 hours, and unfortunately, while she was there, she was detained. She called me while she was in there, and the only thing she was just screaming, Chris, they're taking me, call my lawyer. Yeah, sorry, that's not I don't really like talking about that one no more, but yeah.
I understand. And what can we do here to help? Because obviously, we have a modest sized podcast. Obviously, we do a decent amount of numbers on Saturday in particular. That's why I wanted to have you here, so that this can get in front of as many eyeballs as possible. What can we, the people, do to help you hopefully find some justice here in these very dire circumstances?
So I created a website, someone posted it earlier, which is called freestep.com, freesteph.com. Thank you. Yeah, whoever posted that, freestep.com. So on there's 3 links that you can use to help us out. The first link is to email our senators, right? So the senators and the congressmen, they can't directly step in and say, hey, release her, right? But it definitely brings a lot of attention to her name, right? So it makes her stay relevant, right? So if anything does happen to her case that's negative, one of the Congress members are likely to check in on that case, all right, and kind of help us out on that aspect. Another thing you can do, obviously, so emailing the senators is one of the buttons. Another thing is we're just trying to get as many congressmen involved as we can. Again, just to keep eyeballs on her case. If you guys have ever heard about a lot of the stories with people with ICE, it's not really fair in there. When she goes to her hearing, it's not fair, right? And so if we have members of Congress that are keeping an eye on this, there's a chance that if something happens that's wrong, they can step in and help us out. Like she went to one of her hearings, for example, And it was supposed to be her bond hearing back on December 29th. The ICE agent, who's the prosecuting attorney, literally stepped in and said that he didn't review her file whatsoever, but he considered her a flight risk, right? Like he openly admitted, he literally said, "Hey, sorry, just got thrown this case a couple minutes ago. Yeah, let me look at one thing." He looked at our marriage certificate, saw that we got married recently, and determined her to be a flight risk, right? So when things like that happen, it's helpful to have, somebody that can step in and kind of help us on our behalf. So those two things are like the biggest things ever. And the last thing is just the donation, right? That's not one that I really want to push. Truly, I don't, because I think everybody has their own financial problems, right? So that's not one that I truly like to push. But if you do want to donate, what we're going to do with those donations is obviously that's going to be for Steph and her legal fees. But once she's home, we've noticed there are a lot of people in there that are just like her, but they don't have any money, right? So for us we're trying to help everybody file something, get some kind of legal representation, right? And so what we've done so far is we've been able to help 2 girls out with lawyers so far, and we're going to continue to do the same thing. So one of the things that's working for a lot of people, I don't know if this will work forever, and I don't know if it's the straight way to go, but a lot of people are filing habeas corpuses. If you guys have been following this, but in order for us to do that from a lawyer, lawyers typically charge about $3,500 to about like $6,000. And there are people in there with Steph right now, no criminal backgrounds. They're not bad people. They're really good people. They just don't have any money, right? And so we want to use some of those funds to help those people out too, because Steph's not the only one. She's not alone.
No, there's thousands, and it's only going to get worse. Because again, like I said, if this was truly about immigration, this is a whole other story regarding the economic system that we're currently under. It's, again, like I said, this is one of the hard lessons in life about serving your country, is that once you learn how it works, it's hard to look at it the same. That being said, what state are you based in, and where is this trial taking place?
So we're here in Texas. She's over in Houston, at the Houston, I think they call it the Houston Processing Center. So that's where her next one's going to be at, here in 4 days, actually. So hopefully we get some good news. So it's just a master hearing.
I actually have a suggestion that I think could actually help, because right now, as you know, if you're in Texas, you have the primary election that's happening right now. Have you had the opportunity to get in touch with either Jasmine Crockett or James Tallarico?
Yeah, I reached out to Jasmine Crockett a few times. She followed me on Instagram, which was amazing because of the video. I don't think she has the chance to get back to me yet, but I've reached out a million times.
I know Jasmine. She's been on the show a couple of times. I'll be happy to send a message on your behalf. As far as your congressman, is it the one-eyed pirate, or who is your? I'm
not too sure who that is. It's my congressman is Lloyd Doggett.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, unfortunately for you, Lloyd Doggett is well, you could reach. I mean, Jen knows, Joaquin Castro. I mean, I could try to shoot him a message as well and see if I could get his attention. I'd be happy to do it. And he's been out there in San Antonio doing that on the regular, but he's been going to a lot of different places to try to help people out. I would think, because of the fact, and I hate the fact that this is political, but with Tallarico and Crockett, someone's always looking for political opportunism to make an impression. If that's what it takes to free your wife, then so be it. And also Greg Stoker, he is somebody to connect with. So what I'm going to do with our friend Rachel is I'm going to put a list together of different people to reach, to see who would potentially be willing to at least lend a hand. I can tell you right now, Lloyd Doggett, don't even bother. Waste of time. When you have a person who's older than the two of us put together and is still in Congress, that's unfortunately not a good sign. And that's a big problem in general. But two people that have a lot going right now, and they're younger and they're trying to make an impression, I would think that there's probably something to be said for that. And as far as Senator Corwin is concerned, I think probably not somebody who's going to give too much attention to this, but we will try. We will do everything we can to try to help. That's what we do here. And so, guys, if you would be so inclined, please make sure that you go to freesteph.com, because if there is anything that we can do, we the people, to draw more attention to this story, that's what we're here to do. And we certainly hope that if for no other reason, we put all the cards on the table to try to make this right. We're happy to do it, Chris. Final thoughts before you go.
Man, I really just want to say thank you to everybody like you, right? Everybody who's using their platform to help, everybody who's just supporting. If you can't see the bags under my eyes, man, it's been a long journey, you know. So the support truly keeps me motivated, you know, and it keeps us going, you know, and thank you guys. That's truly all I want to say.
I want to thank you for your service, but I also want to thank you for your candor and the fact that you have been able to maintain. I mean, listen, when the camera's not on and you're all alone, I can only imagine the rage that builds up. But with that being said, it's very hard to maintain a level head in these times. But I would like to think that if there is any reason for hope, and at least knowing that you're not alone, because times like this, it does feel daunting and hopeless, but you have a lot of people out there who have your back. And if thousands of people who will hopefully end up seeing this decide to go to freesteph.com and get involved in the littlest of ways, if it's a contribution, if it's spreading the word on social media, and then it's obviously calling your senators, your congressmen, despite the fact I don't think Lloyd even knows he's here anymore. But with that being said, we're going to do everything we can to help. And we thank you so much for coming on this evening, and stay in the fight. And we'll hopefully be speaking again when a positive development comes up. We hope you'll come back once not if, but once your wife is free.
Thank you, guys. Thank everybody so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Chris. Have a great evening. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye. It is unfortunate that we have to deal with stories like this. It is unfortunate that we live in a country that denigrates our citizenry the way that it does. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop with somebody who has obviously served our country admirably, who is in the U.S. Army, is a Black Hawk pilot. He's a talent. He is a very important member of the U.S. military. But they don't care, because in their mind, everybody's expendable. And that's why the Zionist scumbag that is Mike I Heart Israel Huckabee decided to not only call out friend of the show Anthony Aguilar, he decided to put a fucking target on his back. Because that's what bastards do who don't actually represent our country. These are traitors, is who they are. Of all the people that Huckabee could bring up in his interview with Tucker Carlson, he goes right after the person who actually was on the ground and saw what was going on there. Not because he was defying the story that Anthony was telling. That's not what he was doing at all. What he was doing is letting the powers that be know who needs to be on the lookout. Because maybe an unfortunate accident might befall upon him as a result. Well, we can't let a story like this go without having the opportunity to have our friend on to respond directly. Anthony Aguilar, welcome back to Revolutionary Change.
Thanks, Peter. It's always good to hear from you, and always good to be on. And I just wanted to say that my prayers and thoughts are with Chris and his wife, Stephanie. He is definitely a talent and a value to the nation, not only as a service member, but especially in that skill set as a Black Hawk pilot. That's not something that is easy to accomplish. And I will also do everything that I can to bring more awareness to the situation and his story with he and Stephanie, because I think that that's absolutely intolerable, and we should not put up with that as a citizenry.
Couldn't agree more. Before we get started, I just want to know, considering the fact that this interview between Carlson and Huckabee is perhaps the most talked about news story of the last 24 hours. Have any of the major news networks reached out to you about having you on to dispute the claims of the ambassador to Israel by any chance?
No, and I highly doubt that any of the legacy major news media such as Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or any of those will reach out. They're all controlled by the same Zionist entity that controls Mike Huckabee, and they don't want to give someone the opportunity to platform that would tell the truth with the evidence. I mean, the evidence of what has actually occurred in Gaza, specifically at these distribution sites, the evidence is overwhelming. It's overwhelming in a sense of public opinion, and it's overwhelming in a sense of legality and what would be used in a courtroom. So, no, I have not been contacted by any media whatsoever. So I'm not surprised by that. If I am, I will gladly present the facts, but I am not holding my breath with the media establishment as so entrenched with Zionism as it is right now. I mean, they're owned by, Barry Weiss is with NBC now, or CBS, and they're owned. They're not free press.
Not that they ever really were. Now it's just obvious. Here's what he had to say.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
You platformed a guy. You had him on your show, Tony Aguilar.
Don't platform anyone.
Well, you interviewed.
Not a liberal,
Tony
so I don't
Aguilar.
platform people.
Okay, you interviewed Tony Aguilar, who claimed that IDF soldiers killed a little boy in his presence. That didn't happen.
Okay.
Is he lying?
He is lying, and you can, just the way that he interrupted Tucker to get that point in. This was not something that was organic in their conversation. They weren't talking about the distribution sites. They weren't talking about GHF. They weren't talking about the weaponization of food as an implementation of genocide. They were talking about Israel's claim to the land genetically. And Mike Huckabee stopped Tucker to inject this piece. This was a fed, directed talking point as a shot across the bow to warn me to stop talking, but to also inject that talking point, which this is what it tells me. Now more than ever, I will not stop because I'm in his head. We, the voice of reason, we, the people that are speaking up, not just me, the thousands. We are in Netanyahu's head. Netanyahu told him to say that. He doesn't know who I am. He was fed that information. And, I think it's quite interesting that he knows down to the detail my full name, who I am, and can describe what he described in this way. But he cannot hold a conversation on, why do you put Israel first? So I think he had this in his pocket as a deflection topic. He was going to use it no matter what, and he did. And I don't see it as unfortunate. He has stepped in it now, quite literally. This is an unforced error on his behalf. He just made claim as the ambassador that he, according to him, which is also not true, according to him, that he was directly involved in this delicate operation. And what the truth is, the evidence that I have and that's been presented to me that I have been working towards exposing further is the young boy that they claimed to be the young boy that I saw killed is not the same boy. And they paid his family to go along with their narrative. And if you notice, neither the GHF nor Ambassador Huckabee nor UG Solutions have any idea or tracking or aware of where this child may or may not be. And if they're so sure of it, why don't they let their buddies like Fox News or whomever come in and interview him, an independent media source? Why just them?
That's that's an excellent point. But of course, this dingbats got a lot more to say.
It did not happen.
I don't know.
Let me give you the story.
If you know whether it happened or not.
Well, I can tell you why I know it didn't happen.
Okay.
Because we found that little boy less than a week later.
All right.
I was involved, heavily involved, in helping to extricate him from Gaza.
We're getting an audio back somehow. Colin, can you help out? Colin, you there?
Oh, I was about to say, Anthony, I think needs to mute while the clip is playing.
Okay.
Is all.
Cool. All righty. We'll keep going.
4 different countries were involved in getting he and his mother to safety, get them out of there. Tony Aguilar is a liar.
Okay.
Tony Aguilar claimed that he saw an IDF soldier shoot the little boy. He was fired from the GHF for cause, and he begged for his job back, and they wouldn't give it back because they didn't want him. And he told them that if they didn't give his job back, that he would burn them down.
Okay.
So he goes out. No, let me finish this because it's important for you to understand.
Right.
So this guy then goes out and makes up this story that he witnessed IDF soldiers shooting a little boy.
I don't know that he made it up. He seemed to believe it to me. It's possible he's wrong. I've been wrong many times.
Well, this is a little bit more than just missing a fact. He claimed to be an eyewitness to the murder of a little boy.
Okay.
A little boy that a week later we found.
And you're sure it's the same little boy?
We're absolutely certain.
How do you know that?
Because we had pictures of him. We had descriptions of him. We know his name. We know his mother.
Okay.
He was extricated out of Gaza. It was a very delicate situation to get him out because if Hamas had found out that he was still alive, they would have killed him in order to validate Aguilar's story.
I mean, is this guy out of his fucking mind?
You know, for this individual specifically, Mike Huckabee, it doesn't take much to control him because he is a Christian Zionist and he believes that Israel comes first, even to the point to where Israel should take all of the Middle East. So in this interview,
we're going to get to that.
Okay, I'll wait then. But in this interview, he exposes so much, and you know, he really had a point to make in calling me out, which tells me specifically as a warning and indicator, if you will, of watching the human intelligence landscape and looking at him and what he just said, is that I'm in his head. They know that image and that story, if you will, but that fact of this small child getting gunned down, and to be clear, Amir is not the only one. Hind Rajab, thousands of other young Gazan children that have been gunned down and killed. The IDF themselves have admitted to this in their war crimes of shooting, sniping unarmed civilians at these distribution sites. There's video of it. There is eyewitness testimony of it. And I posted a video afterwards and I ended it. I'll probably cut it and make that into a short to put out too. But what I would ask the American people across the United States and people around the world is that who should you believe? Because right now it's a matter of he said, because there's evidence that the young boy was killed. And what I would ask is, would you believe someone that in order to graduate from West Point and abide by the motto of duty, honor, country with an honor code that then served for 25 years, and in doing so served with honor and led America's soldiers around the world? Or are you going to believe a guy that in his entire life, he only spent 3 minutes inside of Gaza during a GHF tour, and machine gun fire was going off in the background, and him and Steve Witkoff almost shit their pants? So
I also want to say one other thing, and you and I have talked about this at length before. There really is something deeply offensive about individuals in government positions that have never served this country in the military, denigrating people that have. And they are so ready, willing, and able to do it. And when you're somebody like Huckabee, who never met a piece of fried chicken that he didn't want to eat, This is the type of person who probably has a lot of internal anger about his inadequacies in life, and he sees somebody like you and he wants to take you down a peg. Damn that Aguilar. He's not even American. He's Hispanic. So naturally, I got to take him down. You know, it is an unfortunate byproduct. But as I often like to say with these sociopath, psychopath type people, they're always telling on themselves. They're always letting the cat out of the bag. They're really not good at hiding it. And the fact that he decided to associate you with Hamas, because of course he would, they really are telling on themselves. You are a lieutenant colonel in the fucking military, and he's saying that you're a traitor to this country. As far as I'm concerned, like, this guy should be brought up on charges. I mean, it really is. But it also goes to show you how we are in this sort of revolutionary moment that's developing here in this country, because in the end, their way, it's winning now, but in the long run, they're all going to lose. We know it. So let's keep going.
How do you know that?
So he gets out.
How do you know Hamas would have killed him?
Why would they? Wouldn't they have wanted to kill him? Because that way they could have said that this story was true.
Look,
that Aguilar, I'm just telling you that
what
this
you're saying is true, and I have
today.
no basis of knowing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad, because I don't
Good.
want little kids to get killed, even 14-year-olds. Okay.
You shouldn't want anyone to get
But let
killed.
me ask you, is it true? He also made the claim, and he had audio of it and video too, that U.S. contractors were using live ammunition to disperse crowds, and he had video of that. Do you know did he make up that video?
There were times, here's what happened. Crowds would come toward the sites. They were given verbal warnings, and then they were given additional verbal warnings, and shots were fired either in the air, sometimes in the ground. And if they continued to come and threaten, there were times when there were people who were engaged in firefights.
Okay, so two things here. Number one, he is a liar, and we know for a fact this is a lie, because the incident in question that is being addressed here was with desperate people trying to get food and drink. We know for sure that that's what this is. The idea that this son of a bitch is going to suggest that people who are on their last legs are showing up with guns instead of their hands out because they just want something to eat so they don't die.
It's the same playbook out of the IDF's playbook of call the person a liar, say it didn't happen, and then blame Hamas. That's the three-step way of anything that they do. And the reason I can tell that this was fed to him by the IDF, maybe directly from Netanyahu telling him, hey, discredit this, is that he doesn't know how the distribution sites operated. He wasn't there when they took him to one when he was escorted out by the GHF. Prior to going to the site, the IDF conducted hours of bombing in the area to make sure that it was not only clear of any threat of which there was not, but also clear of any human beings at all. And then the Palestinians that were allowed to come to that site on that day had been trapped behind the artillery line, if you will, or where the bombs had been dropping between the site, and were led into the site afterwards, desperate for food. And the IDF still fired upon them with machine gun fire. In the interview, or the filming of his visit with Steve Witkoff to the GHF site, you can hear machine gun fire in the background. And when you look at what it's saying about these, this firefight, a firefight is when you have two forces firing at each other. A firefight is not when you have an armed military with tanks and machine guns firing into unarmed civilians who are begging for food. That's not a firefight. That is murder. And there were I served at all four of the distribution sites. I encountered and came into contact with thousands upon thousands of Palestinians. And not once, not once was anyone ever armed. Did anyone ever fire a shot, throw a rock, bring a stick, a knife? Nothing. No one ever in any way threatened anyone. The IDF were brutal and would shoot at them as a means of controlling the crowd, and killed many.
Great. And this is also why I give a lot of credit to Tucker. He has caused such a firestorm by using his platform for absolute good when it comes to this particular issue. Can't thank him enough. And the way he the way he allows Huckabee to basically bury himself where he stands with the way he's conducting the interview, kudos to him. But then again, he's been doing it for over 30 years. So it doesn't surprise me that Huckabee looks as bad as he does.
Happened.
Oh, they were armed?
Sometimes they were.
They were. Do you know of specific instances where they were armed?
I can probably get you some specific
I don't.
information about that.
I think I know the answer to that. I don't think there's any evidence at all that they were
But
armed.
I also know that
Are you okay with using live ammunition at aid distribution sites for families, women, and
Well,
children?
very rarely did this happen near
How about
aid
at all?
distributions.
Are you okay with that?
No. I'll tell you what I'm not
like
okay
you're
with.
okay with.
No. I think you are so trying to put words in my
I'm
mouth.
not. You said that they were firing back, but then there's no evidence that they were.
On a Sunday afternoon, I can remember when there was widespread reports on BBC, CNN, and the New York Times, and they said that 27 people were killed at a feeding site. We had video extensively over that site. Not one single person, not only were they not shot, nobody was shot at. There was not one bit of violence that happened at that feeding site.
You're trying to get me to defend BBC? Not going to do that. It's
I
like
hope
defending Hamas. I agree with you. I don't believe anything I see in the media. It's just that it's really simple. If people are using, and these were American contractors, by the way, these are not Israelis that I'm aware of. American contractors run by some crypto minister or something was running the group. If they're using live ammunition at an aid distribution site, that strikes me as totally unacceptable.
They were not firing.
Does it seem acceptable to you?
They were not firing at crowds.
People got killed. There's a way
and
to.
Some of those people got killed because Hamas were trying to keep them from getting to the aid distribution sites because Hamas was controlling the food. Hamas made $500 million selling the food that was supposed to be given away for free.
Defend Hamas.
And what they were trying to do is to keep people from going to the sites where they were getting food for free. When we set GHF up,
Hamas
the
bad,
first thing that
BBC
happened,
bad.
I know,
Agreed.
but I'm telling you, the first thing that people said was, wow, this is the first time we've had food that we got for free.
Is it
Because they
okay
had
to
buy
shoot
it.
unarmed people?
I just told you it wasn't.
That's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Of course it's awful.
And yet, at the same time, he wants you to believe that Hamas controlled this entire operation, that Hamas was actually there, that they had pocketed $500 million, and that they're the reasons why these people couldn't get food. Even though there are countless stories of Israelis blocking trucks from coming into the distribution sites. That's a fact. Like there's actual documented evidence, including 2 Israeli women that were recently arrested in France because they were involved with this shit. And yet here he is saying this. I mean, again, Jen often says, how do you know that a Zionist is lying? Their lips are moving. Or a politician, their lips are moving. Well, Huckabee is both. And even worse than that, this level of lying, though, in my opinion, could easily be disputed. And as far as I'm concerned, there could be legal charges brought against him for some of the things that he's saying. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And I wanted to highlight another piece of, in the way he's talking, he's calling these humanitarian aid distribution sites feeding sites. His words. And when you think about it, that's not a small thing. In his brain, these distribution sites to give human beings humanitarian aid, he calls them feeding sites, like they're animals. And that goes along with the rhetoric of the Israeli government, the Smotriches, the Ben-Gavirs, the Netanyahus, who call Palestinians animals. He reinforces that dehumanization rhetoric by saying that these are feeding sites, because that could not be further from an accurate description of what these sites were intended in terms of how they were serviced. And even if they were run like they should have been in accordance with humanitarian aid principles, they're not feeding sites. That's gross. And he uses it organically. That's how he thinks in his head. It's racism, it's bigotry, it's hatred. But to your point of things that he said that might be criminal, the IDF shooting into the crowd has been captured on HD 4K video. The images, the videos of UG Solutions contractors on The 29th of May is one example. Firing into the crowd and killing a Palestinian man and then cheering and celebrating about it. Or on the 2nd of June, when a UG Solutions contractor killed a woman with a stun grenade. These are well documented. For him to say what he just said, when this goes to a hearing in Congress and or to a hearing in a courtroom, he is going to have to backtrack on that when the evidence is shown, or he will commit perjury and say that it didn't happen and he has information to state otherwise. Well, there's evidence that states clearly that the IDF and UG Solutions contractors fired into the crowds, not just around them, into the crowds, killing hundreds, thousands. When CNN went into Gaza in October, shortly after the ceasefire, and they were doing a documentary or documenting these GHF sites that had been abandoned in the middle of the night, up and gone in the night, they discovered thousands of bodies buried in shallow graves in the ditches, buried by bulldozers outside of these sites, exactly as I and other contractors had described. So justice isn't always swift in terms of we're going to see results tomorrow. But rest assured, Mike Huckabee, I'm glad he knows my name because he will see it again and he will face me in court or in a tribunal when he is brought up on war crimes. He is a war criminal. He is a traitor. He is a liar. And he represents the worst of America. While he tries to defame the best of us. Those of us out here that are telling the truth and have served our country, he's a disgusting human being.
He is. Let's finish it out.
Are all lives equal, do you think?
Of course they are.
So the death of a Palestinian is every bit as important and significant as the death of Israel?
Why wouldn't it be? Of course it is.
I don't know.
Of course it is. There's no such thing as a human soul that God made that is less valuable than another. I'm pro-life.
Me too.
So I believe that every life has intrinsic worth and value. There's no such thing as a worthless or a completely disposable life. That's what makes me pro-life, Tucker.
I totally agree.
And I believe that from the conception until the end of natural life.
That's why I would never say when confronted with the death of children, war is terrible, because it minimizes the deaths of those children. It's awful. And
I don't think it minimizes. I think it is outrageous. It's a terrible thing. I wish we never had war. Why do we have war?
We're about to have one with Iran, it looks like. How many Americans do you think will die in that war?
I hope none. None died last year when we participated in the 12-day war. Not one. You said 20,000 would die, and they didn't.
I said could, and they could have. And they could die now, and that's a real risk.
How many boots on the ground do you think the U.S. has supplied for Israel over the course of its life? How many times have we put soldiers on the ground for Israel?
Well, we had the Iraq War, which was for Israel.
No, it wasn't for Israel.
How was it for us?
Well, because it was a retribution against 9/11. Now, was it the best idea?
Was Iraq involved in 9/11?
Our government thought so.
Why are 9/11 documents still classified?
I have no idea.
That's for sure. See no evil, hear no evil, never question anything. Just do what you're told. Get your paycheck. Family will be fine. But you'll never be able to wipe that blood off your hands. Ever. This is beyond the scope. And like I said, Tucker, whether you like him or not, he is a masterful interviewer. He knew exactly how to set him up, and he made him look that much worse. And all I can say is that whatever you're doing it right. The idea that the most consequential piece of news media that is going on right now has you at the center of it. It took a lot of guts to do what you did, and you're lucky you weren't killed. Because believe me, if they could have taken you out, like they took out Pat Tillman, for example, they would have done it without even a hesitation. So when the so-called Christian Zionist talks about how he's so pro-life and every life matters, we all know that that's not true. So with that being said, there's an even bigger story here that was revealed during this interview. There's a lot of different talking points in this interview, but there's one other one that we are going to talk about that is of the most importance, and that is, what is the intention of this entire operation? Why are we even attempting to start what could be World War III by starting war with Iran? What is the whole purpose of this country supporting Israel to the extent that we do? And this is the second part of the interview that's of the most importance.
To Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant, so that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean...
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose.
Did he? Is that what he did, Anthony?
No, and this guy claims to have been a theologian, which I believe he was a Baptist minister, but he is also a Christian Zionist. And as Tucker described the geography, that's another thing that I think that many of our politicians don't have an appreciation for, and that's geography. There's many congressmen that can't even point out on a map where Gaza is. But what he just said there, that I don't know if it'd be that far. Yes, in that sense of from the Euphrates to the Nile, that would include half of Iraq, half of all of Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the Sinai, all of those things it includes. And it's not a coincidence that that's exactly what Netanyahu presents in his Greater Israel map that he shows, is exactly that, from the Euphrates to the Nile. And this whole idea of a chosen people, or that the United States should be reinforcing a policy of annihilation of an entire region for a chosen people, is absurd. It's diabolical. Every American, especially in America where we have values and freedoms and that separation of church and state, for this individual to say that Israel are God's chosen people, I mean, he's putting everyone else below that of Israel. And that is disgusting. I mean, it is absolutely absurd. He is a coward. He is a shill. He gets paid to say what he says, but he also believes it. And that's what's scariest about Huckabee, is that he is a zealot for the cause. And
he preaches Judea and Samaria like he's one of those people. And on top of everything else, he's not only one of those people, but he's also willing to get paid to say it as well. That's the danger.
Well, if you can make money doing what's natural, might as well.
Yeah, well, I think that's also, if you could just
for him.
Yeah, if you could just mute real quick. It also, Anthony, just hit your mute button real quick. This also, I think, speaks to a bigger problem that we've covered many times before on this channel regarding Christian Zionism and the people that use it as a weapon. It is cliche, and I keep bringing it up, but Jewish Zionism is based on money and their ability to bring that money to the table. Christian Zionists are the sheep. They're the flock. And people like Huckabee, who is from Arkansas, which is a very Christian Zionist Protestant state, evangelical state, there's also a common theme with a lot of these places like Arkansas. They're very poor. They're very low educated, very low economic opportunity. So they easily prey on these people. And this is the grifting salesman. That's who Huckabee is. We've seen charlatans like this man throughout history for thousands of years. They always appear. And the worst is that they appear to be godlike or Christ-like. At least that's how they like to portray themselves. But in reality, They're just the devil in disguise. That's all they are. You want to know what the Antichrist looks like, who the false prophets are? You know, when you think about Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, it's really the false prophets. And the false prophets are people like Mike Huckabee. You have to be aware of people like this. But it is a shame because all too often, people are born and bred into this. And when you're talking about Baptist, evangelism, you know, Protestantism, Christian Zionism type of Christianity, these are people that are taught from a very young age that you will burn in hell if you don't listen to what we say. So you can imagine that psychological effect that has on millions of people in this country. And even in this moment, as I think millions of them are questioning our unholy alliance to the state of Israel, you have charlatans like this man who are ready, willing, and able to sacrifice millions for the betterment of their own livelihood. I mean, if that's not un-Christ-like, I don't know what is. He is an evil son of a bitch. He may come off as a very tempered personality and jovial type of man, but make no mistake, he is an evil son of a bitch, as he has proven time and again. And we're going to continue with a very important statement that he's about to make.
To a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started on this.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. Yeah. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
What that also tells me is that somebody had been more or less waiting for somebody in a high position within this administration, but just in politics in general, to admit what the whole purpose of this project has been since day one. You know, the Gaza Riviera, if you will. What was the whole purpose of this? The whole purpose was the Greater Israel Project. That's what this has always been. That's what it will always be. And anyone who is still blinded by their ignorance, their bigotry, their hatred of everyone that isn't American, in their eyes, what an American is anyway. And the lesser than component when it comes to, let's say, brown people in the desert in the Middle East. And so here you have the person who, as Tucker was so ready with this statement to say, do you believe that Israel has the right to expand their borders and destroy other nations that are around them? And as Huckabee says, yes, I believe the Greater Israel Project is not only acceptable, but if they want to take all of it, I agree, and will back them to do it as well. Am I wrong?
No, he certainly indicates that they are entitled to that and that the United States would stand with them. And the way he says it at the end there so flippantly with his, they can have it all. That is such a dangerous statement that he made. And I was glad to see that very soon after, Jordan, at least, not all of the Arab nations thus far, and I hope that they do, but Jordan at least came out with an official statement condemning what he had said. And I think that all nations, every nation, not just the Arab nations in between the Euphrates and the Nile, all nations should condemn what he said. That is dangerous rhetoric. And to say that as the U.S. ambassador to Israel, that's his official title. I think that he is the Israeli ambassador to Israel. But as the American ambassador to Israel, to say that is such a dangerous precedent. That puts Americans at risk in the region. Because now, if you recently saw, while the United States is having playing slap ass with boards of peace and talking about how we're going to rebuild Gaza with real estate money, Iran, in preparation for this war, has done a few critical things. The United Nations came and said, well, the IRGC, which is an official military defense unit of Iran, and calling them terrorists, they came back and they said, okay, well, under the same UN guidelines that you were calling the IRGC terrorists, we, Iran, call every nation state within the EU a terrorist state. So now the United States and anyone that has boots on the ground in that region are now legitimate military targets if this war kicks off. So Huckabee, and you made this point earlier, and it's something when I hear people like Huckabee or Trump or a J.D. Vance, who served in the military for 4 years as a photographer and never deployed. When these guys talk about war and they talk about boots on the ground, it sickens me because they have no idea what they're talking about. And if you consider the loss of what could happen just in the opening hours of a full-scale war with Iran, he's going back to the 12-day war where we snuck in a fleet of B-52 bombers. No, we're going to lose aircraft carriers. We're going to lose aircraft. We're going to lose soldiers. We're going to lose entire units on the ground. I'm talking thousands within the first opening salvos if this goes full scale. And it's something that Mike Huckabee has no idea what he's talking about. And if there's any American that listens to what he says with any type of legitimacy in terms of military operations, diplomacy, what's best for America, after what he just said to all of us, he just said that he'd be okay with Israel taking it all. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, what party you're in, or whether you're in the House or the Senate. If we don't stand up against that and remove him from that position and condemn that statement as a nation, we are setting up our soldiers in the region, at least, for a very dangerous precedent.
Final thought before you go.
Thank you for always having your platform running and continuing to speak the truth. I would ask everyone, in terms of what he said about me particularly, just go back and look at the evidence. Look at the facts. The facts state clearly what happened. The young boy Amir, on the 28th of May, 2025, at distribution site number 3, was gunned down by the IDF, left for dead, and buried by bulldozers in a small, shallow grave in the middle of nowhere. And that's true, and it's unfortunate, and it's horrible, and he's not the only one. So what I would say is that when you consider that particular story that they want to discredit, okay, what about the thousands of others that have met that same fate? Is it okay? No. So that interview with Tucker, he really revealed himself and the true master plan that Israel has for the greater Israel. And we have now clearly heard it. We should believe it, and we should do something to stop it, because greater Israel doesn't stop with the Euphrates to the Nile. It doesn't stop until, this is reminiscent of Hitler's Lebensraum of 1939 to 1942 and the expansion of the German Empire.
The similarities between Nazi Germany and the genocidal state of Israel. And if you take a look-see back at the clip that I did earlier at the start of the stream regarding Mr. Rowan and Tony Blair and what this board of peace really is, which is a money-making, it's a money-making scheme. It's a money funneling scheme for the Gaza Riviera project. They've already had 17 billion with a B already pledged to the organization. And it's clear what's happening. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and we'll depart on this note. The only way out of this is revolution. There's no other way. This is where we are. And we know there's no other way because they're telling us there's no other way. They are willing to put a sign on your back and get you killed. Just be out campaigning one day in central North Carolina, and some crazy person just happens to show up at the event and didn't really like what you were saying. And we've seen this before. We know what MK Ultra is. We know what these different types of clandestine operations are. So to say that there are a lot of people that have your back, we're not the only ones. There's thousands upon thousands of people that will see this that have your back too. So stay strong and stay in the fight. Appreciate you as always. And thanks for coming on this evening.
Thank you, Peter. And please pass my hellos on to Jen.
We'll see you in DC real soon.
Yep, we will.
All righty, brother.
Thank you.
Be well. So as you can see, this story is one of several that really scratches the surface of just how detrimental this is. And guys, if you would, we have been teetering on hitting 1,000 live viewers tonight. If you have not smashed that like button, please do us a solid and hit that like button. Please make sure you are subscribed. Please make sure you share the stream. And please make sure that after the live is over, you drop a comment, you drop a share, do all of those wonderful things. And also, one of the things that also helps this channel out a great deal, believe it or not, especially if you watch our clips, one of the things that does make a real difference and helps us grow in a big way, if you let the ads run, and I'm not talking about the 5-minute ads, but I'm talking about the ads that are 15 seconds, 30 seconds. If you let those ads run, that helps our channel. We're not at a point yet in terms of our growth, in terms of the amount of money that we're able to make off of the work that we put in, where we could just remove ads altogether. I would love to get to that point, and hopefully we will. So with that being said, thank you all so much for your amazing support. I cannot thank you enough. But we're going to now take this a step further, and we're going to show you the depths of which this psychopathy, that is Jewish Zionism in particular, is willing to go. So this is going to be a nice throwback. Now, I've never covered Oprah Winfrey on this channel before. I have my suspicions about that lady, particularly when it came to what happened in Lahaina over in Hawaii, including a story that we'll bring up regarding the times of Israel and how pro-Israel she really is. But now I'm going to take you back in time to a very important story that took place in May of 1989. Pay attention. This is a big one.
My next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood. Meet Rachel, who is also in disguise to protect her identity. You come from generations of ritualistic abuse?
Yes, my family has an extensive family tree, and they keep track of who's been involved and who hasn't been involved. And it's gone back to like 1700.
And so you were...
Right, I was born into a family that believes in this.
And does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl?
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? And so who knows about it? Lots of people now.
I talked to a police detective in the Chicago area, and several of my friends know, and I've spoke publicly before. And
so when you were brought up in this kind of evilness, did you just think it was normal?
I've blocked out a lot of the memories I had because of my multiple personality disorder. But yes, I mean, it's like if you grow up with something, you think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought
So what kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things?
Well, before we continue, one thing that I do want to point out, as Mehdi points out, their flag does have the satanic pentagram on it. You know, I never really thought about the Star of David and what it actually represents, but my understanding is that it is an evil symbol, is essentially what it is. And so that doesn't really surprise me. And this level of abuse is very real Now, keep in mind, this is a clip from a time where you didn't have social media. So it was a lot easier to do these types of pagan rituals, blood sacrifices, as the things that we're learning in the Epstein files in terms of spirit cooking and whatnot, which is essentially what she's alluding to here. And the saying when it comes to Jewish Zionism has always been, they don't actually believe in God, but they believe that God gave them Palestine. So in that respect, should not come as a surprise.
Went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to, you know...
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in our family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back. The other thing I want to point out, not all Jewish people sacrifice babies. I mean, no.
The fact that she even feels the need to make a statement like that, I just want everyone to know that not all Jewish people eat babies. Well, you know what? Not all Jews are Zionists. How about that? And the one thing that we have learned is that the conflation of saying that everybody's the same and that if we just deal with the Jews, if we just got rid of the Jews, everything will be fine. No, that's what they want you to do. And this is what I've been constantly trying to remind people. Zionists survive and thrive by the conflation that Judaism and Zionism are the same thing. So even somebody who is in that world, who has done a lot of evil things, just wants people to know, not all Jews are like us. We're not all crazy. Yes, we're aware. And the same is true for every culture, race, creed, etc. So that's why it is imperative that we do not, there is a distinguish with a difference. And that's what this is. But it is pretty hard to hear that this is the type of behavior that goes on. And as she's alluded to, this is something that goes on with a lot of people. Now, again, as I said, this was done during a time where there was no social media. So being able to get that message out there, and even in a sea of over 900 people watching live, there's still going to be one scum-sucking bitch who's going to show up in the chat and say there's no such place called Palestine. Okay. The good news is, if we do it based on the ratio of all the other people that are here that say that Palestine is not only a place, but that's what's really there and not Israel, it's about 900 to 1. So I would say that the numbers are actually in our favor. Trust me. There's not that many out there that actually believe in this. The problem is that a lot of people who are in this world are at the very top of society. And as capitalism has showed us time and time again, a lot of people are willing to sacrifice their integrity and everything they stand for a piece of that success, even at the detriment of humanity. We have more to say.
It's not a very we kind of know thing. That. Just want to point that out. This is the first time I heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies. But anyway, so yeah, you witnessed the sacrifice.
Right. When I was very young, I was forced to participate in that, in which I had to sacrifice an infant.
And the purpose of sacrifice is to what? Is to bring you what? What are you sacrificing for?
For power.
Uh-huh. Power.
Yes, we remember Warren Jeffs. We remember all of these different religious cults, like the Mormons, like the Scientologists, like the Zionists. History has shown that religion has always done more harm than it does good. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in the possibility of God, and I do follow Christ's teachings. However, the more likely answer is that we're just here. There's no rhyme or reason, as much as people want to know why. And I get it. But just remember, religion has always been used as a weapon against humanity. And this is a prime example of that. This woman is freely admitting that her belief, or the beliefs that were bestowed upon her from a very young age, led her to human sacrifice, and not just any human sacrifice, sacrifice of a child, an infant. You think she's lying? I don't.
And so, were you ever used? Were you ever used yourself?
I was molested. I was raped several times.
And what's your mother doing
She's
in all of this? What's her role in all of this?
I'm not exactly what her role is. I haven't, recovered all of my memories, but her family was extremely involved. She brought me to it. Both of my parents brought me to it.
And where is she now?
She lives in the Chicago metropolitan area. She's on the Human Relations Commission of the town that she lives in, and she's an upstanding citizen.
Do you understand what the point is of this, ladies and gentlemen? And the point that I've been trying to make for the longest time when it comes to the people that are psychopathic or sociopathic in the society that we live in today? They're all amongst us. They're our neighbors, they're friends, community and organizers, those that are involved. And I'm not saying that they're all like this, but they're there. They exist. Which is why so many years ago, and again, I haven't done a full expose on Seth Rich as of yet. I think we could probably put that in at some point. When you think about the information that came out back when the files were released by WikiLeaks on the eve of the 2016 Democratic National Convention, everyone was so caught up in whether or not the Democratic Party had rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders. It's pretty clear that they did. But what was not talked about, which was really the crux of why I believe that Seth Rich had to be removed, is because he revealed the first origins of Pizzagate and the origins of spirit cooking, including the activities of one John Podesta, who ran Hillary Clinton's campaign and has been a primary fixture in the Democratic Party machine and DC politics for about 5 or 6 decades. Can't have those loose ends floating around. And this is just another person who has lived in that satanic-like world where that type of behavior goes on. And in the end, it's all, her cognitive development is stunted. This woman is clearly, what I would say is probably in her 40s. But you would think that her personality is described to be that of a teenager. She's still a child and will never be the same for what she's been put through. And I'm sure she feels a great deal of guilt for what she participated in. But at least she's willing to say it. I tell you, if that were at all possible, I would sign up for it because the world would be a better place. There was a time where perhaps that was a much needed component to everyday life before real development came along thousands of years later. But today, what more could it be done for? It certainly provides a lot of evil. And I'm not saying it doesn't do a lot of good for a lot of people, it does. But we cannot ignore the evil that comes with it as well.
Nobody would suspect her.
Were you raised with a sense of right and wrong, Rachel?
Yes. I mean, it's like I had both. I mean, to the outside world, everything we did was proper and right. And then there were the nights that things changed, that things just got turned around. What was wrong was right, and what was right was wrong. That's what helps to create somebody to develop MPD.
Multiple personalities.
Right.
Now, in your family, did you all call it worshiping the devil?
No,
Or
I don't know.
It was just evil, these things you did.
Right. Well, I said it was evil, and they said it was good. There's a book that I had just come across called Lilith's Cave, which is a book of Jewish mysticism and supernatural, and there's a lot in that book that relates to what I, endured when I was a child.
And all these years later, you would ask yourself, as we come full circle with somebody like Oprah Winfrey, who has basically said absolutely nothing regarding the Palestinian people, even though I would certainly say that of all the celebrities that had the greatest impact on Obama rising above the Clintons in 2007, 2008, I do believe that Oprah probably had the greatest amount of impact. When it comes to the humanity that should be shown and the impact that she could have, she's chosen not to have it. And so I take you back 8 years to this article in the Times of Israel. Now, if you guys remember, there was talk, particularly going into the 2020 presidential election, that the Democrats could only think of, well, what celebrity do we need to get to run for president and who could beat Trump? Oprah Winfrey would probably be a pro-Israel president. Yeah, that's interesting. The media personality's positive relationship with Jewish leaders and the Jewish state stretches back at least a decade. Because this is the world we live in, buzz is now building around Oprah Winfrey running for president in 2020. Winfrey sparked the speculation with a speech at the Golden Globes in which she praised women who had come forward with stories of sexual abuse, declared that the time is up for abusive men, and promised girls that a new day is on the horizon. She also spoke about the importance of a free press that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and to injustice, to tyrants and victims and secrets and lies. It's hard to say what policies the iconic talk show host would support as leader of the free world, but let's make her president anyway. We don't know what the hell she stands for or what the hell she would do to make society better, but she's popular, so, and she's a black woman. So let's make her president, because who cares about policy and who cares about the American people? But one thing we can expect, President Oprah Winfrey would probably be pro-Israel, because in the end, that's what really matters. Winfrey has had a positive relationship with Jewish leaders and Jewish state stretching back at least a decade. In 2007, she was honored by Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel. Now, why is that such a significant piece of information? I'll tell you why. Because if anybody knows anything about the Zionist cause and the deliberate lies that were told about the Holocaust, what happened, what didn't happen, who it happened to, who it didn't happen to, as friend of the show Norman Finkelstein has pointed out time and again, when it came to the tattoo, and it was only done at Auschwitz, those that were there wanted to remove it, and those that weren't, that wanted to benefit from it, put it on. Now, I believe he said that to us, and I believe he said it to Candace Owens as well. If anybody is the eye of the hurricane when it comes to the Zionist grifting class, Elie Wiesel is at the head of the class. He is as bad as anybody that there has ever been. Now, he's long gone, but man, let me tell you, that whole class, that Zionist class was born, the grifting Zionist class was born from Elie Wiesel. He's the one that truly started all of this. So it should come as no surprise that he loves Oprah Winfrey. Though the trip doesn't appear to have happened upon receiving the award, yet news reported Winfrey expressed sympathy for Israel's fight against terrorism, because of course she would. No, Israel's the terrorists. That's who does it. That's how this all gets tied together. And as we now know, when it comes to somebody like Oprah Winfrey, and like so many others that claim to care about humanity, they don't care if in any way, shape, or form it affects their empire. Do you know that Oprah owns 1,000 acres of land on the island of Maui by Lahaina? I heard it's as much as 2,000. The one thing I can say with confidence at this point, that I hope many of you agree with. The days of celebrity culture truly dictating the terms of society She also gave us Dr. Phil. Don't forget about that one. You are an idiot. Yeah, Oprah's, she's bestowed quite a few interesting characters upon us. So when we can dig back into the archives and say that she probably knew a lot of these horror stories, not just the ones that she necessarily put on her show back in 1989 and years prior. Remember, the talk show circuit was a big deal in the 80s and 90s. Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, Oprah, Geraldo Rivera. But then eventually, it became smut TV, leading, of course, with Jerry Springer, Jenny Jones, and the list goes on and on. I was a fan of Montel. I thought he did a decent job. But the point is, to think that Oprah didn't know, that she didn't have a clue, she knew, and she does know. And that's why we cannot put people that are celebrities on a pedestal. It brings the entire conversation of the night full circle, because it also addresses an even more critical point when we're talking about what is going on with the NBA. Celebrities are not your friends. They are not your heroes. And in most cases, you really don't want to meet them, because I've met quite a few of them. Trust me when I tell you, A, they're human just like us, and B, if they have a certain sense of importance that reeks of I'm better than you, you don't want to be around that. Nobody does. We're all unique in our own way. Some people just happen to have a lot more money than others do. Be it as it may, I have no doubt that this woman, Rachel, and many others have gone through similar circumstances. And it comes to the final story of the evening, as we are now on the precipice of going to war in Iran on behalf of Israel. And I think at this point, pretty much everyone agrees that the only reason why war with Iran is even plausible is because Israel wants us to do it. And so, do I take any solace in the fact that two of the biggest media personalities in conservative politics, Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, who do not like each other, find common ground when it comes to this issue? Yes, because we should all be finding common ground. We should all be able to put our political, our economic, social issues aside and recognize this as a moment where there can be absolutely no denying that a United States, a true United States against the war machine is the only way that this might not end terribly. Right now, it looks like it will. We're going to kick it off with the statement that Nick Fuentes made that Candace Owens decided to laud, and rightfully so.
You can understand, yes, the United States has all these plans about how they want this to go. And we're being told about it all the time. Well, there's this impasse over centrifuges and the negotiators are working out a deal. You have to understand that is just not the whole story here. And what must always be considered is that Israel is dead set on all of this failing. We are diametrically opposed to Israel on Iranian policy. We want a deal. They want chaos. We want diplomacy. They want a war. We want to prevent a regime change if possible. They need a regime change. It is imperative for them. And that is why they got Trump in office. The reason being is because they know that Trump is the one guy who might be the least likely in the world to make a deal. Because Trump ripped up the first deal, Trump killed Qasem Soleimani, and Trump believes that the Iranians are trying to assassinate him.
Oh, listen, they're totally trying to kill me. And believe me when I tell you, they're not going to get away with it. They're totally not going to get away with it. There's no way that the U.S. government would ever hurt me. It's got to be the Iranians. That's totally who it is.
So Israel has engendered all this bad blood. They've made Trump the mortal enemy of Iran, and now they've made him president so that he might actually preclude the United States from making a deal.
There's a bigger issue at play here. And this is all getting back to what has always been the canary in the coal mine when it comes to something like Citizens United. Miriam Adelson did not give Donald Trump $100 million because he needed $100 million to become president of the United States. She gave him $100 million because she wants the Greater Israel Project to reach its conclusion in her lifetime, as well as the fall of the Iranian regime. And all Trump cares about is money and power for himself, perhaps for his immediate family. That's about it. And as we are seeing with the Board of Peace, that's why something like this is ultimately becoming a bigger problem than one could have possibly imagined it would be. So even people like Fuentes, who probably is a Fed, don't think that everybody who works for the State Department thinks the same way. Don't think that everybody who works for any of the alphabet agencies all think the same way. They don't. Tucker Carlson is clearly intelligence, but he's on the right side of it. There were probably a lot of people who were in intelligence who didn't want Kennedy assassinated, who were not on the side of Allen Dulles or J. Edgar Hoover or LBJ. But the people that are at the very top, that have always been part of the Zio state, especially post-World War II, they have always had the levers of power, and they have never let them go. But we may be entering a period where there may be an opportunity to break it. So if Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes can put differences aside to agree that no war in Iran is the only answer, hey, we'll take it. Whatever it's going to take to ensure that it doesn't happen, I'm on board, and so should everybody else.
As a guy, because of this grudge. So it's not about centrifuges and it's not about missiles. It is about regime change. And Israel doesn't want Iran to have centrifuges, and Israel doesn't want Iran to have missiles for the same reason that Israel destroyed Hezbollah and Assad and the Houthis and the rest of it first, because they want to make Iran defenseless so they can destroy them. And that is why Iran won't make a deal.
Can you blame them? Can you blame Iran for not wanting to make a deal? What is the difference between North Korea and Libya? North Korea has nukes. Do I think Iran has nukes? I think they might. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they did. And maybe that's the canary in the coal mine when it comes to what's happening right now. There are always back channels, whether the president is communicating directly with them or not. But do I think it's possible that the Shah of Iran might actually, or the Ayatollah, excuse me. I think that it's possible that the word has been put out there that if they attack us, we will wipe Israel off the map. And we have the means to do it. Maybe. Iran's patience has been tested for far too long. And now that several nuclear-armed nations are backing up Iran, hey, this is not a game anymore. This is dangerous, very dangerous. And unfortunately, the Zionists just don't care. They don't care if the world ends. They're really convinced that, well, we'll have our island, not Epstein's island, but, islands where we'll go and live, and the slaves will do as we say, etc. But then you have the psychopathic true believers like the Mike Huckabees of the world who think that they're going to see Jesus in their lifetime. Maybe this is the way to summon him back to earth. You know what I mean? It is a very dangerous time, which is why universally we should all be spreading the same message. even with somebody like Fuentes, who I haven't covered in weeks. But I cover him now because this is important and his message is correct.
Iran is not going to give up their missiles and their nukes because then they know what comes next. We're telling them, look, we're going to destroy you. If you don't give up your nukes and missiles, we will destroy you. And Iran is saying, look, if we give up our nukes and missiles, then Israel's going to destroy us anyway. At least with the nukes and missiles, we have a fighting chance.
That's why every nation in the Middle East should have a nuke. Now, unfortunately, the only nation for sure, or the only nations for sure that have them are Pakistan, and I believe Turkey has them as well. That's it. Notice how they don't really fuck with those countries? But all the ones that don't, well, they're kind of sitting ducks. But that's why one has to ask themselves, does Iran actually have nuclear capability? My gut is telling me that they do. That's what I believe. I believe Iran has that capability. Now, they may not be telling people that they have that capability, but if push comes to shove, they're going to make it very clear that we will end Israel if we have to. That's what I believe.
At least with missiles, we're a porcupine here. And we can make it very costly and prohibitive for you or Israel to intervene. If we're sitting on a pile of 2,000 ballistic missiles, then everybody knows that if the United States goes in, people are going to die. We're going to rain missiles on Israel. We're going to rain missiles on aircraft carriers and bases. And this is the same deterrence logic of a nuclear arsenal. Why does a country get a nuclear bomb? To become a porcupine. To make it more costly to intervene than it otherwise would be. And basically make it detrimental or lethal. If you invade North Korea, everyone's getting nuked. Dead man switch. The regime cannot be allowed to fall because if it does, they press one button and South Korea, Japan, the United States all get nuked.
Do you really think that it is an impossibility that a country, let's just assume that Iran doesn't currently have a nuke. Do you really think that there isn't a country that is nuclear armed that is backing Iran wouldn't slip them one if they had to? And said, hey, do what you got to do. I don't see why not. But as Fuentes points out, as I'll point out, the greatest deterrent from Western confrontation is nuclear weapons. Now, I'm not a fan of nuclear weapons, but if it's the only thing that is going to stop Israel, and by that extension, the United States, then have at it. You need a nuke? Okay. At least then we know. The only problem is that there are some really crazy, psychopathic, Armageddon inclined people who would like to see it happen. We're like, oh, I just want to see the world burn. And I know if the nukes start flying, it'll happen. You've got some really sick, demented people in positions of power now who might actually be agreeable to dropping them. That's the problem.
Well, the missiles are the same logic. The nuclear hedge was that, and the missiles are the same logic. If the Iranian regime feels as though it is going, they could press that button. We got nothing left to lose. And Israel's a very tiny country. If 1,000 ballistic missiles are falling on you all at the same time, now that's not as bad as a nuke, but that's not a great day either. And Israel doesn't have a lot of population centers, and, you know, they can't shoot all the missiles down. If you shoot down 90% of 2,000 missiles, that's still 200 missiles that are getting in, and that's a bad day.
They're going to have a lot of bad days. And that's why we hope against all hope that this does not happen. We hope. But am I convinced that it isn't going to happen? I don't know. And perhaps when somebody asks, why is it that Fuentes was okay with the activities taking place in Venezuela, but he's not okay with this? Unfortunately, That's what a bully says, because a bully says we can go into Venezuela and do what we want. You can't go into Iran and do what you want. That's the difference. And that's what's coming for us, because Iran is ready for a fight. And they have the weaponry, the citizenry, and the terrain to do it. I hesitate to think how bad this can get. We're going to close this evening with a concluding message from Candace Owens, who agreed wholeheartedly with Fuentes' statement to the point in which she shared it on X, and it went viral. Then, of course, Fuentes decided to make a little cutesy video about, Candace, come on. You know you're in love with me. That kid's got a lot of problems, but he's a very good orator. I give him where it's due. That being said, there's one final layer to this that I think is very interesting regarding the Charlie Kirk story, and Erika's going to discuss, or excuse me, Candace is going to discuss it regarding Erika right now.
Okay, something that I want to mention to you that I had been quietly working on to confirm the date for. I'm just going to throw this in here on that same topic. I had mentioned to you guys a while ago that on June 19th, Erika purged her Instagram of a lot of pictures, 126 posts she deleted. And I had wondered what drove that. Why would you delete 126 posts off of your Instagram page? And when I did my master timeline, I realized that this was the time when things were really heating up with Israel and Iran. I had mentioned that to you in the past, and I had wondered to myself if she had moved to do that after Charlie beat Bibi Netanyahu in a debate and all of his Zionist thugs at the White House, and he had convinced Trump that he should have just a limited military, limited military operation in Iran, which ended up being Operation Midnight Hammer. Well, I can now confirm that the date that Charlie went into the White House and went up like toe-to-toe with Bibi Netanyahu and his thugs who wanted more action in Iran, and he won, was on June 18th.
Now, there are many theories as to what ultimately caused Charlie to lose his life. I have always maintained that it's because of Israel, and that's who took him out, in conjunction with our State Department. But getting back to the reason why they decided to remove him, you could remove however which way you want, but why would they have done that? What was the motivation? What was the thing that Charlie ultimately did that caused him to lose his life? The suggestion is that he had certain people speaking at AmFest, but in reality, it's because Charlie decided to stick his neck out regarding not going to war in Iran, and this was last summer. And he had a lot of influence when it came to that. In fact, he specifically went to the White House to speak to Trump. It is a documented meeting in which he specifically said, we should not go to war in Iran. 2 months later, he's dead. Now, if you ask me, that's a hell of a lot of smoke. And of all the reasons, when you consider the precipice of what we're facing right now, why that would be such a big deal, could not think of a reason, bigger reason, as to why they would have to get rid of him. This is the reason. My opinion.
So to make that very clear, on June 18th, Charlie goes head-to-head with the Zionists and Bibi Netanyahu, who are trying to convince Trump that there needs to be more action in Iran, that America should get behind. Obviously, Charlie's in there showing like the base is going to hate this. Don't do that. That's a very bad idea. And Charlie wins. Tucker spoke about that. You can go find the clips of Tucker speaking about the fact that Charlie spoke up for America, really spoke up for Americans and said, don't do this. You know, you promised no wars. Keep this as a limited operation.
The one thing that I have pointed out time and again about Charlie Kirk and the impact that he had when it came to electing Trump the second time, considering the impact that he had on the youth vote, there's no question that he had a direct impact on him winning. And when Turning Point USA and all the issues that it's going through right now, and yes, there's no question that it is a corrupt organization, money laundering. It's a conduit directly to Christian Zionism and the state of Israel. It's an organization that got taken over by pro-Israel donors. We know all of that. It's all connected. But in the end, if there was a breaking point, getting in the way of the war machine when it comes to a war with Iran that Israel has had their trigger fingers on. If you go back and watch the video of Netanyahu, Milikowski, excuse me, when he was talking to the at the congressional hearing about whether or not we go to war in Iraq back in 2002, he did want us to go to war in Iraq on behalf of Israel. But he said it pales in comparison to needing to go to war with Iran. So this is a multi-decade effort to get to where they are now. And if anyone were to get in their way, I mean, you see how gleefully they kill people, like shooting children at aid sites with food in the desert. Would they really hesitate to sacrifice somebody like Charlie Kirk? I don't think so. Come on, war with Iran. It's what we've been working for forever. Can't get in our way now. Let's finish it up.
That's June 18th. The very next day on June 19th, Erika purges her Instagram. She deletes 126 posts. I had wondered if that was the way it went, that Charlie pissed off Bibi and then Erika purged her Instagram. I don't know what to make of that, but I wanted to give you guys that data point, which is from our master timeline. Okay, switching gears here.
One really has to ask themselves, it's one thing if you delete a few posts from social media. You delete 126 posts that have been verified? I mean, listen, I think most people have come to the conclusion that Erika Kirk is a honeypot, and that's always been her role. But what were the files that were deleted from Instagram? Who were the photos with? What was being discussed? I think that's something we all would like to know. And that is another layer to the story. What role did that have? Now, again, as I've said before, I'm not here to tout Charlie Kirk. Respected his game. Didn't respect his message because it's clearly different than one that I would be espousing. Nevertheless, he did a hell of a job. But he was a political pawn, a very important pawn. In fact, he was probably more than a pawn. He was more like a knight or a bishop. He had that level of impact. He sat at the round table. But he got out of line. And now we're going to see just how far this goes. Now we're really going to see what the Zionist state has in store for us, because shit's getting real. And I mean very real. So if Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens can momentarily put differences aside so that we as Americans can coincide on a similar message, then here's hoping we can make that change. Because once the bombs are going off, there's really no coming back. Man, anything to keep this Epstein files suppressed. Am I right? Great message from Candace. Great message from Nick. Let's all work together. I would say that there probably is a lot to that story, Fort Huachuca. And yeah, sometimes you just don't know. But that's why we have the channel that we have and why we tell the stories that we tell. We understand. Listen, do I know for sure that we are going to continue to put ourselves in harm's way now that Anthony Aguilar has been on the show this evening? And that the State Department is clearly going to see this? And Mike Huckabee is probably going to know about it? Yeah, I understand that that's a risk, but I can't live with myself. We can't live with ourselves without doing all that we can to try to help our country, because we are on the cusp of an international catastrophe that I don't think people are truly wrapping their heads around. It's so much worse than you could even possibly begin to imagine. So if in any way we can have any type of a positive impact on creating momentum away from what the state of Israel is trying to have us get involved in, then that's what we're here to do. That's our job. If you've enjoyed the show this evening, one more time, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For no money or as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, yet still growing despite being a heavily suppressed channel. As I mentioned, we recently cleared 110,000 subscribers. We certainly appreciate any and all support that you guys are willing to provide. It really does mean a lot. So let's continue with our super chatters for the evening. Tony D with the $5. The book, The Age of Oprah, Cultural Icon for the Neoliberal Era by Janice Peck is highly recommended to me. She shamed people on welfare. Thank you. I have to say, I'm not surprised, but that's Oprah. Pick yourselves up by your bootstraps and become a billionaire like me. Let me tell you, you want to talk about a celebrity who lives an ostentatious life? Look into how Oprah Winfrey spends her money. TM, we love seeing you. Welcome back. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Always Diana, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here. Duly noted with the $10. I'm still seeing veterans outside of grocery stores asking for donations. Trump tripled the military budget, but that's not helping either. My best to you and yours, Chris. Here's what I could tell you about the military budget. It has nothing to do with military cadets or veterans. That's a fact. Truth over lie. Thank you so very, very much for the $49.99. Do you think America should apologize to Muslims who surrendered hate in USA? God bless you and the freedom of America. Thank you for your amazing support. There is not enough apologies that we can give to the Muslim community. All we could do is through our actions. And yes, we do apologize either way. Judith Ann Campbell with the $10. Lutnick's own brother was in the towers and died on 9/11. His own brother. Yes, his own brother. Michael Corleone killed his own brother because he went against the family. Kenman with the $2.79 Canadian A. Glad to hear Peter will be on Due Dissonance. Tomorrow night, I believe at 7 p.m. or whenever they go live. I'll be on for about an hour. So check out Due Dissonance tomorrow night. We'll cross-stream it. Hope to see you guys there. Duly noted with the $5. How does Huckabee feel about burning down Australian land to make way for Zionists? How about burning down Argentinian land for Zionists? Because that happened too. Or what they did to Chile. The U.S. Congress has been infiltrated. Oh, it's been infiltrated for a long time, brother. Black Spock Wharf with the $2 super sticker. Thank you so much for your support. Libertarian Social Dem, thank you for checking in. Pete, God willing, Florida will be de-Zionized post-DeSantis. Fat chance, but thank you for the support. And finally, Sean Rockers TV with the $2. Last I checked, Oprah, you meant Oprah, even screwed over Monique. Listen, Oprah screwed over a lot of people to stay at the top of the mountain. We'll have a lot more to talk about on Monday. I couldn't fit every story in this evening, but we've got some even juicier stories coming regarding 9/11, including one of the hijackers who was apparently connected to Israel. Be tuning in for that one. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. I will see you either tomorrow night on Due Dissonance, or I'll see you Monday, and free Palestine.